Welcome, everybody. My name is Vicky Hanna, and this is Hayter Institute of Education, a unit recording that we're going to provide you as a resource. This unit is CHCCDE019, and it's about working within a community development framework. This unit is across several units in the community sector. This one's about our role as workers, our roles out in the community, and putting together maybe an unmet need. It might be building on something that's already existing, or you might go in as part of your assessment work and start looking in your local area of what is a gap, what is something that you know you might need in your local community. There are 3 assessment tasks with this one. There is your task 1 quiz, and that's several answers, and that you'll need to maybe do some multiple choice. We might give you a scenario, and we'll be asking you, what do you think would be building on that capacity of working collaboratively in the community and encouraging our clients. Our role, regardless of what sector we work in, whether it's alcohol and other drugs, youth work, community services, or mental health, or sitting in individual support or early childhood, any of the scope in the community sector, we're all involved at some level in a program. When we're working in the sector, we're hired to be delivering part of a service inside a particular program. So it's an important unit for us as learners to be getting this qualification. But there's a lot of flexibility in this one too. You get to be able to do a bit of a deep dive in your local community and think, what would I really like to do as a worker? What do I think might be really helpful, or a need that I've noticed as well? So let's get started. So in acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where we work, study and live, Hayter and all our learners in our community pay our respects to elders past, present and future. We celebrate the stories, culture and traditions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders of all communities who also work and live on this land. I'd like to extend this acknowledgement out to anyone who may identify as First Nation or Torres Strait Islander who's watching this recording and in part of our Hayter learner community. So a little bit of housekeeping. This is one recording. It's a resource that you're going to have sent out to you by our amazing learner support officers. But I would recommend that as you're studying, whether you have just started or you're getting towards the end, that you keep these recordings in a folder and refer to this folder as the unit code. So this is one non-stop recording, but it'll cover the full 3 sessions. With this is your learner guide. You'll get a copy of the slides that you'll be able to refer to. And I'm going to summarise what are the key takeaway points for you in doing this unit, and to be helpful for you to do your assessments as well. So stop and start, do this in breaks. 20-minute intervals is really good. If you are finding that the content is a bit heavy going, then take a break and stretch. Look after yourself when you're studying. If you're doing a Cert 4, we know that you're doing between 7 and 12 hours study every week, and that includes coming to classes if you can, the live classes. Sometimes we'll record those for you, mostly if we're doing role play. So if we offer role plays in class, or 1 or 2 learners might like to do that, it gives you an opportunity to see what one of the tasks asks for in this unit. Task 2 is doing your program, doing a bit of research, some data, backing that up, really going in and having a look at your sources, what is happening for you in your local community. If you can't see something there, then you might take it on a bigger scale and borrow an idea from a program that may have been delivered interstate that you would like to see happen in your state. And then task 3 is your role play. And the role play is just another name for your skills. So all qualifications have their theory and their practitioner skills. And that's a national accredited recognised qualification. So Cert 4 will spend between 7 and 12 hours a week, and diploma level will spend between 12 and 20 hours a week dedicated to your studies. So that's watching recordings, going through your learner's guide, doing a bit of research and background as well. Some of this you might already have some good knowledge about. You might have even participated in a program that went really well. So you can draw on your own lived experience if you find that helpful as well. So just make sure that you manage yourself while you're studying. We don't need an emergency procedure for a pre-recorded session, but I do need to remind everyone that there can be some sensitive topics that we cover. There's a couple of extra recordings that I'm going to send out for you. They'll sit around mental health and programs that have been launched. So take good care while you're studying as well, getting that balance right. And your assessments and submission dates, usually if we spend 3 weeks doing a unit, the due date is around 3 weeks afterwards. Some people start week 1, do task 1, week 2, they do task 2, week 3, they complete task 3. That's not me as a learner. I leave things to the last minute, wait till I'm under a bit of pressure, and then I go. That may not be a comfortable space for you. That's how I study. So it's very individualized around this. But your actual due date for everything is to complete by the time your enrolment date ends. And if for some reason that you're struggling, then you need to be able to raise that in your Q&A sessions in your live classes. If not, you can reach out to our learner support officers, and I'll make sure that I give you that information when we cover the assessment, so that at the end of this recording, you'll be able to know who to contact as well. So let's begin. So here's a pre-warning around if there's any content that is triggering for you, you can call Lifeline 13 11 14. A lot of students do call Lifeline and say, look, there's a topic that's come up that I've found unsettling, and they will help you navigate that space. And it's 13 yarn for First Nation and Torres Strait Island people, which is also a branch of Lifeline. So the purpose of this unit is really the main part is for you to come up with an idea around a program. But before we go there, to have a think about what is a gap in your community. In your live classes, you're going to do some reflection around that. What would you like to put in place if you had the opportunity to do that? And I want you to reflect on that. That'll be where you get your idea to do your project. So by the end of this session, we'll have covered a little bit more around what a community capacity building is, what community means for different people, and you'll talk about that in class. But you're a community sector worker, so our clients can vary depending on what we're studying. So around our framework, that's usually our service model. Who would be your target group? You might live in an urban area, you might be right in a city, you might be in regional, rural, remote. I'm based regional, rural, remote in Queensland. However, was born in a city and grew up on a coastal area. Every one of the demographics completely different. And those experiences, some are the same, of course, but what would work in a city may not work out in rural, remote, and regional. And the principles and values that we need to apply when we develop a community program, and what are some of the different approaches that are available to us. So it's a really creative unit, this one here. It's an opportunity to help you connect with your why am I studying? Why am I doing this work? Where do I want to work on a day-to-day basis? If you're already working in the sector, it might be that you could get a different idea, and this unit gives you an opportunity to do the budget for it, phase it if it's going to be a 12-week course or 2 half days or 1 half day as an information program where you decide this would be really helpful and who will be your target group that you do this with. So in classes, they're live and you'll have robust discussions, and that's great to go into your breakout room. But I wanted to unpack the key learnings for us with our recording. So for many, community means a group of people, a structure, social structure, and social institutions. That could be things like a club, Rotary or Zonta or CWA or men's sheds. That's what community can mean. It's got a social inclusive model around it. Somewhere perhaps where you share common values and beliefs and customs, ways of doing things, I identify as that. It could be a sense of place, that feeling of coming home or where you've made home and memories. And it could be about enduring relationships, that they're part of your tribe, that those people are my people. That's community can mean something different depending on where. So it's like-minded thinking people. It might be something like sport that brings you together. It could be your age. It could be your stage. It could be your interests outside, and it could even be your work. Everywhere we go, we build small communities inside larger communities. I want you to watch the recording that comes from there. In your own time, of course. We don't record any of the videos simply based on copyright, but you will get that as an attachment. When you're in class, you'll go to your learner guide, and if you want to, you can do the activities that are in your learner's guide. And it talks about what are some of the common community facilities that are in your area. Talk about those when you're in classes and when you're discussing this as well. Your trainer will have you break into smaller groups and then discuss as a whole of class what are some things that are in some areas and not in others. The further out we go, the more remote we go, the less access people who are residents in that community often have. It could be the essentials like health and well-being, mental health services, rehabilitation services, what is in your community, and is it accessible for all? How do we develop our community? Well, we rely on our leaders, our community representatives. So you might have a local government where you have a council, and we elect those people to represent us, and we are the voice of the community, and we vote them in to be able to represent us. So sometimes people feel there can be quite a gap between those decision makers, but oftentimes we don't have access to them. So that might be another community development area that you could go, there's a real gap in being able to meet your counsellor and speak to them and have them raise issues rather than as a complaint, something that's proactive as well. So a community development program would be very democratic. So if you get a group of people together, everyone has the same voice, the same right. It doesn't mean that you will all agree. You may have different priority of needs, and that's good, healthy, robust discussion as well. So we seek to give agency to people to address issues that affect them most and to promote social justice and equality. In fact, every program that is available in Australia all started with the community discussion of an unmet need. Groups and individuals who work together to understand what's the social system in their community and the structures or the asset that's available, like a community hall. How do we use them? Our local parks, our sporting grounds. And then how that might impact us one-on-one, and then how it might impact the wider community. You'll look at this when you're developing your program. So it's different to community-based work, is that when we're doing community development, we negotiate the decisions, and it's to increase the community's capacity and sustainability, rather than come up with an idea that's like, oh, that's great. It might even be that it's only once a year. But once a year could be something that you want to see happen year after year after year as well. So making significant changes because you absolutely must, and it's about safety, or improving the well-being and the lives of all members of your community. And then how do we keep that happening at a local level? What might be the problem in the first place? So when we're pitching an idea of a program that we want to do, first of all, what problem are you solving? Start with that rather than, or am I just duplicating another service? For the point of this exercise, make it meaningful for yourself. It could be that the program already exists, but there could be gaps in that, and you could fill that gap. One of the groups who did this in class, there was an excellent program where they were talking about homelessness, more people living in tents in some areas where they were working, sending kids to school, but still not able to get into the rental market. But there were people also with pets, and while there may have been services that could help with emergency accommodation and that program, there was no program for homeless people with pets in that local area that they did their assessment on, and it was fabulous. And they were able to engage the local supermarkets and have people donate pet food, and then they had volunteers who would go and take that to people who were living rough. So that they could keep their pets with them and to be able to afford that. Often people who are living in tents or in some of those public spaces also don't have the security to lock things up. If they leave, then a lot of their property is unsecure as well. So that was a gap in a service. While there were housing services, there was no specific housing service for people who had pets. And even though the laws have changed because the community raised that as an issue, it still didn't change the fact that in their community, in their postcode, there were over 2,000 people who were sleeping rough, and 50% of those people had pets. So they went to their local area, they spoke to people who were living rough, and they decided to capture that data, and they did it with a survey. So they're the steps that you're going to take. Then they looked at, how do we fund it? How do we budget for it? Who's going to be our crew? How do we get that message out there? How do we make sure that everybody has access to this great idea that we've got? And then how can we make sure that this is sustainable, and that we're not coming up with just an idea where there isn't a need, that we've actually gone and got the evidence to support it. That was a great project to read. I really enjoyed that one. So that was about community development, and then having a station year after year for people to be able to make those donations, and to do that with the big supermarkets coming on board. So what are some of your strategies for lobbying? So you might need to do a pitch to the council. This is where things like AI might be really helpful for you. You can ask any of the AI programs to do a GADDI pitch, which is GADDIE is one way to spell that, or GADDY. That's like your elevator pitch. How do I say what I want to be able to get people on board in 3 minutes or less? If they're stuck with me in an elevator and they ask me about who am I and what do I do, how can I take that trip in the elevator while they're there and need to listen, and sell my idea, pitch my idea as a GADDI pitch to them. So you'll need to really break down. You'll have your bigger picture, and then you've got to bring it back into micro, and then it might be 12 steps to implement it, get all the people together. That's what a community development is, but you won't make that decision on your own. Part of your role play in task 3 is that you need to pitch this to other people and get their feedback. But part task 2 is for you to go out and get your evidence to support that, and you're going to need to record. Well, I spoke to these people locally. I went and there was graffiti was one of the other programs. That person had a lived experience. When they were young, they used to get into trouble with doing things like that. They decided that that was an area that they understood, and they wanted to be able to have graffiti as an art, and then have the council come on board, and then have big donors who would provide the paints to be able to do that, and do that in a safe way. But there was more to it. What were the aims and the outcomes of that program? So depends. Some people have done fishing programs for young males who have no male role models. So it really is what will develop the community, help people feel connected to take their rightful place in the community. And the development will be around making sure that you come up with a program that has a need in the community. And that's part of this unit that you'll be working on. So this is a lot of fun, this one. And I'm sure that when you signed up to do your studies, you had your why, what kind of work you would like to do. And it's a great way to be able to have a look inside some organisations. What do they offer? What's on their websites? And what can I do springing off from there as well? There's another video for you to watch in your own time. Some are around social justice and human rights. I've been lucky enough to sit in the advocacy space, and that's very much a community sector thing. But I also sit on the board for a free legal service for people who are homeless, and they're called Street Law. It's a charity. There's no time limit. People can go and speak to someone if they're having trouble with their lease. It's run by a law firm. And they have law students who are part of it. That was a program. Started with the seed of an idea. They found out if there was gaps in the community, what the demand was, and then how could they make it sustainable so it could almost run itself. And someone just had oversight over that as well. If you're not sure about that, you can look that up. I live on Tarrabillan Bunda, but it's known as Bundaberg in Queensland, but affectionately known as Bundy. But Bundaberg Street Law was a project, a program, an idea put together by a lawyer, and it's a free service. But it wasn't done, here's an idea and I'd like to make it happen. It had to have a model around it, had to fill a need, it needed to have credibility and backed up with some data to be able to do that, and sustainable and credible, so that law students would decide that they would like to volunteer. So have a think about, could be anything from fishing through to having an advocate, a lawyer for free, be able to give you some guidance around a legal document. So have a think about what are some of the structural disadvantages that's around homelessness, raise awareness about power relationships, imbalance, those who have and those who have not. Empowering people, it's not a word I use, but I recognise we do use it a lot in our sector. However, feedback from many of the groups I work with, they prefer to be told that they have agency or self-determination, because empowering someone implies that we can give them power, which means that we hold that imbalance and that they haven't got the power, but look, here I'm going to give you some. So, but it's not a word that's triggering, but it is a word that think about what does it actually mean, and who we say that to. I want to empower you would mean that, oh, so you can give me your power, or you get to say whether I have any. So think about the social justice and human rights, even in our safe language when we're working with people. Supporting human rights, and seeking consensus about needs and using a democratic process. So if you break up into a group and you all pick one from your class, or if you're a learner that doesn't come to live classes and you're doing this independently, you're going to have to get a group of people that you are going to survey. and you're going to need to give us actual data from the area, the postcode that you're researching, and you're going to be able to get those people come together and pitch an idea and take a vote who's for this and who isn't, and you need to be documenting what you're doing along the way. So I do recommend that you reach out. If you can't make it to live classes, you can definitely tap into our Discord app, and you'll find learners there who also are looking for other people to do things with them. So just pop over into that space as well. And if you haven't got access to your Discord app, then get in touch with our learner support officers. So how can you help the community, and how are you going to define what the community needs? How are you going to start? Who are you going to talk to? Where are you going to get your data to support your idea? So we'll look at social justice, citizenship and human rights, getting a group together for collective action, petitions, as well. Diversity, and diversity isn't only country of origin, it's gender, religion, it's in differing abilities. You can have an unmet need where there's greater accessibility. All of the ramps down to any of the beach locations that can take wheelchair users all started with a community idea of an unmet need. Change and involvement, getting other people to support and get behind you with that as well. We'll have a think about some of the principles, why you're doing it, how it's going to help, who's going to get that self-determination from it, who is your target group, the diversity and the differences with the group that you're doing this for, and then the democratic process. So it's rather than we'll tell you if you can have this, it's who has access to that. So really think about your target group. Do you want this open for all? Are you only going to limit it by numbers? Are you going to make it free? Are you going to charge a fee? Think about your program, and it's yours, so you can own it. So what skills might we require? Initially, we would need to be good at planning, to be a community development worker. We'd also need to be good at active listening, talking with others, having intentional interviewing techniques, giving consideration to things that we don't yet know, being able to gather that information and analyse it and see if you've got a pattern emerging. There's some of the skills. Can you think of some others that would be really helpful? So it might be around your environment, might be, like I mentioned, the wheelchair users access down to the beach. It could be that there's some conflict and you want to be able to have a resolution to that, and the way would be a meeting of minds. How could we bridge that gap with thinking? And often that is education, awareness and information. How do we value what we've got in our local area? Global and local. When we had the pandemic, we saw a lot of similarities, but then even on a national level, my local area didn't go into lockdown, but your local area may have gone into lockdown with the pandemic. So we need to know how this impacts everybody differently. So the needs in your area could be very different to the needs somewhere else, but it's still about community development. And then collective action. How do we get a group of people to come here and be part of and support that? And then how do we get a group of people to attend that program? And what's in it for them if they do? So we have to think not only of what we would like to do, but it also has to come out of that service of what would be good for the community. And we'll only know if we go to the community and ask them. So some of the traditional approaches are needs-based, so identify a need where other people haven't got the same rights or access, and other people needs-based might be, or let's say we'll talk about politicians, they'll decide what will be, or only a few get to decide what someone might need. Gap-based focuses on what's missing and then the gap between what the community needs and what services exist or supports are available. And it might be that there's a gap or an unmet need. So more frequently, though, we will use asset-based approach. So it builds on the assets that are already in the community rather than put extra. If we're looking for funding, every dollar is public money, so it needs to be efficient and effective use. So we wouldn't duplicate, we would build upon something that's already there and make it asset-based. And rights-based. So individuals and communities have access to the basic rights that they're entitled to. Not all members of the community have that or know how to have that. So your program could be about raising awareness, information sharing. One of the examples that I give you is one that we might all know, and it's the Are You OK Day. Started with an idea. How did they get people to get behind it? How could anybody first start that conversation? And now we do it annually. And how do they keep it sustainable? They keep the information, education, awareness, and it's a national program. But it started with an idea, checking in with someone, are you okay? And then what do we say next? And so there's some ongoing. So I give that one as an example. But you might think of another one that you could model it on and then think of your own for a slightly different target group. And if you haven't heard of Are You OK Day, look into that and have a look at how they got started, the story behind it, which of course was Gavin Lark. So it's a great story, a very simple one, easy elevator pitch. To be able to do. It even shows people what to say after you've said that. So the education, information and awareness is ongoing, which means it continues, which means it's sustainable. Setting something up that doesn't rely on just you or one person to keep that energy around it, that it can stand on its own because we spread the word out and more people can go, oh, I could do that bit too. And then we share that across the community, which is community development and community capacity building. So the 5 key assets in A, B, C, and D are individuals, associations, institutions, physical assets, and connections. So an institution could be things like a private business, it's a donor, it could be a committee or a board, it could be a club, it could be access to buildings, a hall, connections where you can get a radio station or media, they can do a story or getting your message out there. Social media has made getting our message and information out there greater. But with this particular one, there's different ways of doing that. So it might be just in your own group that you're sharing that information with. If you've ever had a newsletter or you've had a local paper, when we used to have local papers, we don't have one anymore, but at least not the way we traditionally had that. News and information sharing has changed a lot. So you might have to think differently about how you get your message out there when you're writing your program for task 2 and in task 3 when you're pitching your program to see how that's received by others. And then also going to individuals who you might bring in as part of your group. There might be someone who's got great skills in social media, you want them on your team. There might be someone who's really good at fundraising, you might want them on your team. So think about how you're going to bring the asset, the set of skills, to be able to bring that together to have a successful program. So for people to stay involved, you might get people who are interested in the beginning, but to stay involved, they need to be able to feel that they're welcome, that there's reliable, has integrity over it, that there's accountability, keeping minutes, writing reports, knowing where the funding is going, completely transparent. So it's not a fiefdom where only a couple of special people get to have that information. It needs to be rights-based principles and practices for it to have equity and make that information available publicly. And sustainability is that it won't be just an idea once, that whatever we're doing, wherever we use public funds, whether it's donated or it's through a grant that we apply for, it is to be for the benefit of the wider community. And how can we make sure that the dollars spent here aren't just a one-off thing? You'll share your knowledge by watching a couple of other videos. So have a think about what the community identifies as a concern for them. And you'll know that by asking questions. You might do a questionnaire, a bit of a survey, a phone around, a couple of people. You might send some emails out. Think about who you're going to go to and where you got that information from. And then go a little bit broader. Go to the ABS site, the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Your local government, your LGA, local government area, will have a website, and they will have the ABS data for your local postcode as compared with the national one. So it might be that unemployment is at 5.5%, but in your local area, unemployment could be at 9%. So there's a gap immediately. There's an unmet need in your community. What could you do around that? It may not necessarily be about employment, but it might be about building the skills where people are more employable or have the confidence or can do something while they're not yet working. So that's how you decide what is an unmet need in your local community by comparing it, rather than just coming up with an idea that we have. It's good to have ideas, and that's your motivation, but you need to be able to provide evidence-based data of why you selected that. And when you do your program, you would like to see that reduce. So if it was 8.5% and you wanted to get it to 6% at the end of the 2-year period, that's a measurable outcome. So you're going to have to identify what the problem is. You're going to have your aims of your program, and then what you would like your program to achieve. That would be what you would be aiming for. Some programs, it's actually written into the funding, where it says you will have an 85% outcome of people who will be working or they will be going on to study. If we give you this funding and you run that program, then this is what you must achieve. So when you're a worker going in to work for an organisation, they have measurable outcomes. They don't get public funding just to be able to employ people and deliver a service without measuring that. And the reason why funding comes and goes is if it's not sustainable, or if the decision makers haven't had enough public interest in that, they will drop it. They will cut programs, or they'll try and have efficiencies elsewhere. So have a think about every single community program that you've accessed, or what is available to you, all started with the seed of an idea in this planning process. So it's about issues, concerns, and then the decision. And the decision, of course, is your plan and putting that plan into process. So just briefly, some of the planning process steps. Here's where your SMART goals come in, where it's specific and measurable as well, giving it a timeline, realistic, rather than just coming up with something without really checking it. It won't land. Applying for funding is very competitive. There's people who just do funding applications, and about 10% of them are successful. So you have to apply for lots and lots of them. Most government funding, unless you're working for a government department, but they still will have cuts. A contract will only be there for, it might be 12 months where it's a pilot program, or it might be 3 years. And your employability sits around the 3 years while ever they have that funding. And if you start work there, where are they up to in that 3 years of funding? Is this the last 12 months of that? So we need to have a good understanding around how to make a program effective. If you're working, then you will know more about how a good program runs, how it meets the need of the community, and how to keep it sustainable. And that's making sure that you deliver those outcomes as part of the model that you said you wanted to do in your program. Yeah, so all good program planning is having an absolute focus, not going off track and heading in a different direction. But if have those review points. If something's not quite right, then come back with your focus group and go, look, we've explored this. Is this critical to what we were doing? Have we strayed? Or do we need to come back and revisit and set that? So once you've got an action plan, got your resources in place, how you're going to do that, and then how you're going to measure whether it was successful, that is all part of your planning process. So I'm in the middle of, not in the middle anymore, sorry, I'm at the end of a 7-year program that was put in place. Years 1 to 3, we did those stages. Year 4 and then year 5, we were on track. Year 6 is where we are, and there's this year and 1 more year of this 7-year program. We need to refocus. We need to have a different action plan. We need to grow our resources and have different strategies if we're going to achieve what we said we were going to achieve 5.5 years ago, to be able to duplicate the program in other locations. It's successful where it is, but the focus group might say, we're happy with it to just remain in this postcode. And if it is wanting to be expanded, what's in the way? What's the barrier? Are we our own barrier? Have we grown as far as we can with that group? Do we need to bring in other people as resources, or do we get that idea and give that away so that other people with greater resources could do their own plan around that and pick that up and make that a local program for themselves? So I try not to have too much ownership, but the value and the philosophy around it, the core reason of why we do something, that should always be your focus. And ask yourself that, are we having fun yet? Are we straying? Is this what we set out to do? So as an organisation outside, like every trainer at Hayter is a sector worker, yeah, like there's times where we've actually handed funding back because we diversified too much. And while it's good to have those funds, there's other people in the community who do a much better job if you stray away from that. So we have a core service and we don't move off that core service. We have a core client group and we don't move off that core client group. But then there's other organisations that want to be lots of things to different people. Your simulated workplace environment, First Access, it has lots of programs. And for this unit, the scenarios are around First Access want to give you some seed funding to launch your program and get that going. But you're going to have to do a budget. I'm going to spend it on this. This is how much it's going to cost to have people there. This is what social media is going to cost. This is what the fuel vouchers for our volunteers, if that's what you're relying on, you're going to have to cost it all. And this is information that you'll discuss in class, or you'll do your own research around that. You've got a learner's guide for this one and some great resources. Make sure you remember to say where you got that information from, because it needs to be evidence-based fact. So your working plan, you might divide up some of those activities and tasks. You'll have deadlines, report back. You might meet weekly or fortnightly. You might need to take a vote on something. You could send that out as a flying email rather than have long meetings. Or you might say, we're going to have meetings, but they're going to be no longer than 15 minutes. You're there, you know why you're there. You've got a particular set reason, and everybody does their bit. and you leave, and you keep a record of that meeting. If there's any expenditure, then someone is looking after those, and that's the report that you would have. We started with $5,000 and now we're up to $17,500, and here are the list of all the donors. So you must share your information if you have got any funds or any resources that are being provided for your program. If you're only relying on the hypothetical funding that First Access gives you, then you still need to keep an account in your report. Like, we had some of these things donated, but we costed that, which means we can spend more money on maybe giving a lapel badge, getting those made for all of our volunteers as a kind of way to say thank you, and we'll make the badge look different every year, and then everyone will collect those badges, something like that. Or we might have a thank you at the end of something. So everything that we do, we need to be able to monitor and have that transparent and accountable as part of our record management. So what are the risks if we go out into a public space? Where's the insurance that we've got? You need to look into all of that. So you'll have a brief working plan. You'll bring in anyone that's a stakeholder, is someone who wants to be engaged towards this goal, this program that you want to do. So you need to have what are the needs? You've got that information, your project plan or your program plan, your materials that you're going to need, how you're going to get your message out there, and then how you're going to keep reviewing it, making sure that you've got it. So if I'm doing something, I'm usually 12 weeks out, and week 1, I need to have this done, week 2, week 3, as I start to do my countdown. And then it might be 12 weeks till the event. And then I'll do the post-event feedback. What went well? What could we have done differently? Consider all of those things as part of this particular unit for CHCCDE019. So when we're consulting with the community, look, usually I take things to the street. I've got a great group of volunteers outside in my other role, and I'll go to the uni, I'll go to the schools, and I'll just say, here's our 20 clipboards, I need 20 people, here's our list of questions. But the questions were all designed by the volunteers as well. What will we ask? Who's our best analyst? Who's going to capture all that information and give us a pie chart so that we can say, well, we thought we were going to do this, but it's clear that we missed another thing. So that was an unexpected learning from our survey and our community consultation. You might get a group of people and speak and present it and ask people to come and sign their name if they're interested in being involved. It's your program, how you want to be able to do this. So identify who would be your key stakeholders, people that you need on board. Use a variety of different ways that you meet with them. They might go, look, I can't come to a meeting, but I'd love a one-on-one. Sure, we'll drop around and we'll do that. You might be a guest speaker at an event as well, however you decide to do that. And then that person could then share that information with the group that they're connected to. So your information needs to be clear and concise. Think about, how do we promote and market? A lot of television commercials are done in 30 seconds or less. So you need to have that gaddy pitch mindset of, how do I say what I've got to say if I was stuck in an elevator? And is it clear? Is it concise? Are you okay day is making sure that we're checking in with people if they, what their mental health is like. It's clear and it's concise. It's catchy, people can remember it, and it's got its own branding colours, yellow and black, and which are your hazard colours. So it's subtle, but it's been thought through really, really well. They have sustainability with funding, they have coffee mugs, they have dog collars, they have badges, they have stickers. Yeah, there's lots of different things that they bring it up. There's an ad, and you can go to the website and you can learn some skills. So it's something that is sustainable, keeps going. And then tailor what you're doing to meet your community group that you're targeting this for, as well. Listen and then respond. Thank you so much for your feedback. We're going to give you the results of the outcome. Would you like us to do that? We'll put it up on our social media and you'll be able to go there. So if you're going to set up something like a Facebook page, make sure that you close it down to people being able to put comments up, and you have that where you feed information up and close the comments down. You don't want anybody putting any shade over your project, that you make that information non-political, non-sectorial, non-religious. When you're doing community consultation and engagement, you can have those programs, but that is under that banner. What we're doing with this unit is around the community sector and public funds. But if you were part of a church group and you wanted to do that, then that would be a closed one rather than equity for all. You're picking your target group. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's like, I don't follow certain sports, so it's unlikely that I would be part of that group. So it's not right or wrong, but when you're doing community consultation, community engagement, it is about fairness and equity for all. And that is when we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, think DEI when you're doing something public. Then report back, let everybody know how you're going, and build those positive relationships as well. So your reputation is really important, and you don't want any other people or competition that could throw shade over that, where most of what we can see in social media can often have another intention around it, could be untrue, unfounded. It's not backed by fact. So you need to be mindful how you do things like this as well. It can go very well, but it can also go very badly. That comes in under your risk management. So consider those things. How do we send the message out where people are engaged if they want to be and welcome? So with your role play, you're in your class, or if you're working with your group and you found your group, you'll need to assign roles for people to be able to do. And if someone's great with numbers, then they might look after that side. If someone's good at administration, they may look after that keeping of the notes and the record keeping. If you've got someone who's good at public speaking, then you'll say, would you be comfortable with that? So work to your strengths. If you have an interest and you don't yet know how to do it, then try and buddy up with someone who does, or find out how people do that successfully. So just in this part of the session, sorry, just pop me over there, where our key learnings are about getting the seed of an idea, finding out what the need or an unmet need or a gap in your local area, and then start thinking about what would I do if I had that opportunity to implement a program, or what would I add to in my community as well. Let me just pause here. So up to this stage, I've gone through the theory side of the bigger picture. You're going to get into the micro side of that as part of your research. So you've got your learner's guide, you've got this part of the recording. The next part that I wanted to do with us is to go through what the assessment tasks are. There's 3. I'll bring them up for you, and we'll start to unpack what the assessment is. If you need some guidance on this, then please contact our learner support officers to be able to get them to assist you with that. Let me just change my background so I can give you that email. You'll know all about changing backgrounds when you do your role plays, because you're going to set up a simulated workplace environment. So it's all virtual. We know that you may not physically be working with your peers or the people that you have as part of this project that you're working on for this unit. But for you to be able to give us a simulated workplace environment, we rely on what you have in the background as well, that you come dressed for work when you're doing a presentation. Any of your role plays that you're recording, you need to make sure that you set that scene for us as well. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you can take that to our learner support officers, who are amazing, and they are there Monday to Friday for all of our learners. So you can ask questions if there's something you're unsure about, if you can't make it to classes, but otherwise we run this for 3 weeks. So the email address is lowercase l, lowercase s, lowercase o at hayderinstitute.edu.au. So my name's Vicky Hannah, and I'm so you can contact me on Vicky, which is VIKI. So when I'm doing any of my recording, which is what I like for you to do as well, when I'm marking assessments as one of the trainers assessors that do that, you have our first name, so it's VIKI at hayderinstitute.edu.au. But in the first instance, all of our learner community go to our learner support officers, or you could go directly to your trainer. And the trainer who runs the classes, it's their first name, and then, of course, the rest of our Hayder email that follows. So I hope you find that helpful. There's some amazing resources available, and the Discord app as well. So the learner support officers will give you that. If you can't get through with a phone call, make sure that you send an email. And if you're not sure about that, then send it to your trainer. And also I encourage you to send that to me, and I can flag that for you as well if you need to. So that we can give you assistance. But the Discord is your learner community. That's your tribe in there. If you're looking for someone to play a client, there's bound to be somebody in there looking for the same unit as well. Yeah, and that can be a real barrier for some people. Who do I do that with? And if I haven't got anyone, I could do that. It's always better to do it with another learner, because it's great to sit in the chair as a client waiting for someone to be able to work with, and then you swap places and you record and help each other that way. The more role plays you do, the better your practitioner skills, the greater confidence that you will have, and the more employable you will be. So let me just pause here for a moment. Okay, so this part here, let me just show that. You can see here is our unit. So it's CHCCDE019, work within a community development framework. So the very first one is task 1. So you'll see that in your learner portal is T1 of 2. So the overview is this task. So you'll need access to computer and internet. If you're still learning your way and navigating your space in your portal, please take that to learner support officers. But you will have this recording, you will have a learner's guide, you'll have a copy of the slides, any other additional helpful resources that we think will help. But with this recording, I wanted to unpack what the assessments look like. And then in your own time, go through the slides and watch those video recordings, come to the live class and have some of that rich discussion if you can. If you can't make it to all 3 weeks, then come to one of those weeks and get to know part of your community in there, if you can. Classes are 6 till 9 p.m. Melbourne time, once a week as well, unless it falls on a public holiday. So you'll need to answer the questions. If you don't, you get 3 attempts. There is no penalty regardless of how many attempts you make, but your assessors will give you feedback. So for this one, there's actually 12 questions, and you might get one of the tricky ones, not my favorite ones either, but this is where most people will get stuck, will be the multiple choice ones, because sometimes such a fine line, but that's automatically marked. And it could be where more than one thing could be true. So look for the feedback that you get and to be able to guide you. So the answers to the questions that you have done previously, the feedback will guide you what you got right and then what you might need to do to change to get the correct answer or be on the right track with that. That's what your assessors are doing. So let's have a look just at a couple of questions. So this one is multiple choice. Okay, sorry, 14 here in task 1. So here what they're looking for is they want you to look at the description and then select an option that matches that description. So it will be one of those. So here it's talking about the ABCD approach that I just spoke about, which is the asset-based. And the question is, in the ABCD approach, community members and stakeholders work together to identify what assets exist and resources that are there within the community. These may include natural resources, physical infrastructures like halls, cultural and social networks, so particular groups, and individual talent and skills. What describes that best? One of those will be the correct answer. So you go through these and you use your drop-down box as you start to fill them in. And then you save your answer and it will take you through to the next question. But I'll jump a couple of questions. Here it's got in your own words, where this is based on your knowledge, what you've been studying and learning about from your learner's guide, and going through the slides, watching the recording, having a think about what this means for you. So in your own words, describe how Australia's diverse communities have been impacted. Consider positives and the negatives by each of the following changing landscapes. So it's going to ask you what's some positives about the economy, but what are some negatives about that? What is positive about employment? What's a negative around that? So this requires a brief sentence, not just 1 or 2 words. What's been great about social inclusion, but what's negative about it? So let's, for instance, we chose something that was cultural. Let's say we chose something like Australia Day. What would be the positives about that? And what could be some negatives? That doesn't mean it's right or wrong. That just means we need to be able to have that objective thinking when we're doing our program work and our assessment. As a professional in the sector, we are absolutely entitled to our own personal opinions, but as a worker, we do not. We have all people are our clients from all walks of life. That is where client-centric, non-judgmental, unconditional, positive regard, empathy for all, that is us in the community sector as a worker. So that's our professional boundary, the standards and that code of conduct that we work to as well, regardless of what those differences are. But to be able to think critically and analytically, we need to be aware of something that we might see as a positive could also have a negative impact for a client. So we need to have that open mind, non-judgmental, not closed mind. So this question is to help you consider, well, I can see that view that may be a negative for some people. That's why that question is there. Then explain the principles and practices. Now, when you see a question like this, there are 2 parts. They want the principles and they want the practices. So the best way that you can answer this would be to put principles and start there, and practices and start there. But there's another part to this question, and it'll get sent back if you haven't covered it. So then it's asking for to address structural disadvantage and inequality. So you must answer those two things for both the principle and the practices. I gave you an example of Australia Day. You could find the answers if you were working with something like that. So it says, explain what the principles and practices of community development work are, and then can be employed or implemented to address structural disadvantage and inequality, which means only some get access to. Spoke earlier about housing. There could be greater access for some as opposed to others. And that could be based on lots of different things. So that's a question around social principles and practices. And the last one in that group of 14 in task 1, your quiz, is what is the primary role of the organisational policies and procedures for referrals in community development? So it's going to ask you to select one. One of those answers will be correct for this question that they're looking for. So the primary role of organisational policies and procedures. So to provide legal guidelines for community development activities, outline the history and background, establish framework for making and managing referrals to external services, and to promote fundraising efforts for community projects. Often the answer that you're looking for, the key and clue, is in the question. So here it's looking for what's the primary role of organisational policies and procedures for referrals in community development. What's the primary role of the policies and procedures? It's going to be either this one or it's going to be that one. Could be that one or that one. Not going to give it to you. Okay, but my clue there is it's usually written into the question for you. So you'll find that that will be helpful for you as well. Okay. And just exit that area there. And let me find the next one. 9. Okay, so you can see here that there's the quiz. And then there's the project. So there's 2 parts. There's three activities for you to do. You will be doing your program and then you're going to be pitching your program. So you'll do your project and your role play. So it's not task 1, task 2, task 3. It's task 1 and task 2. And when you do work placement, you will also be doing something about a program as well. So you'll see this one pop up again when you're actually out there in the community doing your work placement hours for your qualification. But for this one here, it's both. It's the project and the role play. So it comes in 3 parts. I'll do an overview first of all. It will ask you to go to the First Access website, which is your simulated workplace environment. And you click on that link, it'll take you in. Before you do that, just remember that your username is Hayder Institute, 2 words. And then your password is Hayder123456. And that's your password. So I recommend that you copy and save this and put this into a folder. You'll use this particular link more than 50 times throughout your full qualification. So you've got Part A, Part B, and Part C. Part A, you are required to research and analyse what those needs are, the unmet needs or the gap of the program that you're going to do. around your community development plan. Part B is that you will be observed participating in a role play to confirm you can perform to industry standards and expectations. That means you will do this with an assessor present. They're not going to be in the role play with you, but they're going to be assessing you as you pitch that. Now, some people might not be able to do that in class. Some people might be able to get consent to go ahead and do that, provided you have all the other people there and present, and you can provide the supporting documentation, and we will assess the recording that you make. So we sometimes do real-time assessment, and then other times we'll ask you to do it in a recording. So you're required to work with a small community representative group, which could be your peers all saying we are this group, to discuss your community development plan and identify if it addresses priorities. You're only going to know that by asking questions. You're going to do your pitch, you're going to talk about it. Now I'll take some questions from the floor and find out what else that might be, and be ready to have answers to those questions. And then part C is you'll be observed participating in another role play to confirm you can perform to industry standards, which means you will be a sector worker. So if you're reading off a script, that's an absolute no. You can have your notes, but this is you delivering what it is that you're going to say about your project, and do that as if you were presenting to a group to talk about that program. It's part of our role when we have a qualification to be the one that talks about it. It's not always stand up and talk. It could be sit down in a very small group and a morning tea where it's meet and greet and networking with people. We do that to collaborate in our community. And then you're going to advocate for the community group you represent and present your proposal to a supervisor, line manager, about funding, and see if they'll get behind that. Part A is the project that you're planning and putting together. That's what you're pitching in part C. And here it's provide below any changes that you would make to your plan as a result of the role play after you've done this part C, and you go, you know what, now I've had these talks, now I've heard some feedback, I think I'd strengthen this area. I could see that maybe we were doing too much and we needed to bring it. What change did you make after you had completed all the other parts of this role play? So there's two tasks, task 2 of 2. You've got your project and you've got the two parts around the role play. One, pitching to the group. The other is pitching to who you want to be able to get that funding for. And you've got to be able to do that in a clear and concise manner. So have fun with what it is that you're going to choose to do your project on. And I hope you really enjoy this unit as well. Let me just move that out of the way. And if you've got any questions around this, then please bring that back to our learner support officers, do some research in the community, find out what your local needs are. I'm sending out with this recording some additional slides that I've broken down for you. I'm not going to do chalk and talk. I want to give you that resource for you to be able to do. There's some embedded videos that you can watch in your own time. And then also I've added a couple of others which from classes before you have found this really helpful. And I did choose Are You OK? Because I thought it was something that maybe you could duplicate, maybe not exactly the same, but it'll give you an idea how just a small idea can grow into something much bigger if you put the planning and preparation around your project. So have fun with this unit. It's really valuable. And I encourage you to work together with other peers from your class as well. So I'll make sure that we send out the how to link to Discord as well with this recording, that you've got a nice little kit of resources that you can draw on at any time to be able to complete this unit. So It's been great spending some time with you. It's not interactive, but I love this unit, and I'm sure you'll have fun. There'll be some great learnings, even some unexpected learnings about what's available and what's missing in your own local community and how you can be part of that as well. Okay, thanks everyone.